Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating, it's Saturday, February 9th, 2019. In both the Lynn life and the Jamie body mind, the authorized souls remain only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls from all other dimensions, as long as the souls are already living by the many Search for Truth rules given to the Search for Truth community by wiser minds above all of us. Somebody's talking in a room way upstairs and putting the fingers together like this in a really characteristic move.
That's true.
And saying, friends, we've actually got to focus on the assignment. And the assignment is, and he's speaking to presences in his own dimension, but that also matters. And the assignment is to create worlds that work in all dimensions and for all categories of sentience, since that's what all of our soul contracts commit all of us to doing, and we are all being observed all the time. This presence is saying to the presences around him, it looks kind of like a group on a stage, and he's only talking to the group who is on the stage.
That's true.
But that group is being observed by a much wider audience. It looks like that group is being observed by everybody, is
That's
how it
true.
feels, everybody. But that presence with the fingers together is talking to his compatriots on that stage. And he's saying the assignment is to create worlds that work in all dimensions and for all categories of sentience, since that's what our soul contracts commit us to doing, and we've really got to start focusing on it. And he doesn't want to give up many things, just as none of his compatriots want to give up many things. They all have that feeling of, I don't want to give up what I believe is important, and I think that you find people should be more reasonable and compromise with me better.
I feel that feeling.
And they all feel that way. Everybody on that stage feels like everybody else should compromise better.
That's true.
And they're pointing to what was being channeled in earlier this morning, that what makes a successful working relationship is when all members of the team are willing to compromise fully on everything that is what they want.
That's
and
true.
To uphold the rules above all, not compromise at all when it comes to upholding the rules. To uphold the rules and be willing to let go of everything else. And that when all members of a team are acting in that way, then maybe the team members will each give up enough that the situation will actually work.
That's true.
So here we have this interesting assignment of the higher powers having the assignment of creating worlds that work in all dimensions and for all categories of sentience. And many, many of the host lives, the denser lives in this ground zero planet Earth dimension planet combo pack, also having that identical soul plan.
That's true.
We believe it's because this is a test planet dimension, but there are many dimensions affiliated with this test planet that are also part of the test. It's possible all aspects of this planet are part of the test.
Oh, that's true.
What an honor it is to be chosen as the test kitchen where the higher powers can cook up their recipes of what they think will actually work.
That's true.
Because of this, we have some very big deal souls tromping through this planet dimension combination that would never otherwise come to this very backwater planet in a tiny little galaxy in a very average universe.
That's
it was
true.
just nothing. It was chosen because it was so unimportant and average.
That's true.
And therefore perfect as a test kitchen, and suddenly it becomes interesting what's happening in the test kitchen. For him is this message: And why do you ask? We think that message is maybe for the Christ Presence community. Somebody's saying, I think it's for the Christ Presence community.
I hear that.
That's why you're saying that, so that they can check their big swollen egos at the door and instead start to do their jobs. Again, we see that presence with his fingertips together, and he's saying that and he is talking about his community. He's saying we have come across some inconvenient information that actually does explain a lot of things.
That's true.
And that's that the entire test planet dimension, and he seems to be referring to Ground Zero planet Earth, maybe among others, maybe just specifically.
That's true.
He's saying they've gone feral. They've all run away. All it is a planet of feral lives.
That's true.
And when we think about what it is to be feral, it is an animal, a life form that was once domesticated and has either been abandoned by its caregiver or has run away from its caregiver.
That's true.
And it's harder to train a feral animal than to train a wild animal, because a wild animal, you're just starting from scratch. You don't have to clean up all your old messes.
That's true.
Or the old messes of somebody who you didn't know. And with a feral animal, you have to clean up the old messes. And it doesn't, somebody's saying, what about animals who are born to feral animals and they're born outside of domestic situations? And the other person who seems to be like a scientist, like an expert on feral versus wild.
Yeah, that's true.
And is saying it doesn't matter, because the stories passed down through the generations, and the domesticating presences, whether they be human or in this case higher powers, are not being depicted as good people. They never are. They're always the bad guys in the stories.
That's true.
So we've got to overcome the initial imprinting of the relationship being problematic. And once that's done, then you can begin to establish a relationship. And we circle around to presumably the compromising, where both sides of that equation need to consider that they are compromising fully, or it isn't going to work. We don't know if anybody has ever tried to train a feral animal. And we have some near feral animals that are living here on this farm, Goose Hill Farm, and it is dicey.
That's true.
And now somebody is talking about apprenticeship.
That's what they're talking about.
And about how we began through this host life. They're talking and they're saying we began, and it's again that same gentleman who might be Ra, an aspect of the Ra soul. That movement is a very iconic Ra maneuver.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Our Ra was in charge of the effort to teach this healing art, the method of angelically guided multidimensional energy healing for soul purpose that the higher powers called the Lightworkers Healing Method. And at first the method was to be taught in an apprenticeship fashion.
That's true.
Those powers went through the client list of the healing practice and picked 3 names, and they said, try teaching it to these 3. Talk to those people, explain that you are trying to learn how to teach it, and so you'll give them a free apprenticeship for some unknown period of time to see if it can even be taught.
That's true.
And all 3 of them very eagerly said, absolutely,
yes.
Count me in. And the process began, and it took about 2 years, and then the higher powers said, all right, we now know that this is in fact a teachable, learnable skill, and we know that those 3 are not the right people to be working with. You're working with the wrong people.
Yeah, that's
So let's widen the funnel, get more people through a program, which means you have to expand it to classes, teach it in a class setting,
That's true.
and we'll find the people who are the correct people to teach this to.
That's true.
And in retrospect, asking what is it that was objectionable about those first three, it seems to be what we finally got to at the end of the class era, which is the fundamental disconnect was oppositional defiant disorder to the soul plan.
That's true.
I don't want to do it and you can't make me.
That's true.
Which is definitely true. Nobody can make anybody do anything. And so we can follow the rationale. The apprenticeship program began in 2007,
That's true.
and in early 2007, like January 2007. And in January 2009, the decision was, this is teachable and learnable, and those people are not the right people to work with, presumably because of this energy of oppositional defiance to the soul plan.
That's true.
Go find the other people who are supposed to be learning this. And so the multidimensional team embarked on an effort in this dimension to locate the correct people and spoke on many radio programs.
That's
and
true.
gave many intro classes and did a lot of getting the word out that presumably hit well over 1 million ears, because there was just one radio show. There's one particular radio show we can think of that had over 1 million listeners. So
That's
quite
true.
obviously hit
More than 1 million.
more than 1 million, and 500 people through the intensive program.
That's true.
And at the end of it, came around to these people aren't the right people.
Whoa.
And now we really need to try again in a small apprenticeship way. Okay, fine. And that was by in late 2013, upstairs voices began saying, don't teach the classes, don't cancel the classes. That began in November of 2013.
Yeah, that's true.
And by summer of 2014, they said, don't schedule any new classes, finish the ones you can't cancel, cancel
right.
the rest.
That's right.
And by February 2015, we had taught the last class.
That's true.
For whom is the message? And why do you ask? And then out of that, out of all those students, there are 3, maybe 4, depending on how you count, the one in Jacksonville.
That's right.
3 or 4 apprentices once more being worked with,
That's true.
attempting to teach presences to work with higher powers so as to live their soul plan. And somebody's asking, why would they want to do that?
I hear the person asking that.
There are many reasons why one might want to do that.
That's true.
Including that it actually feels great to do what we were born to do.
That's true.
It feels much better than it does to live in oppositional defiance to it and to feel like a feral animal all the time.
That's true.
It feels great compared to feeling like a feral animal. However, if we just want to take it from the perspective of the feral animal, what we might want to consider is karma.
Yes, that's what they're saying.
And that while the cycle of karma is delayed, which probably came from good intentions to give these poor, benighted people a chance to get their acts together,
That's true.
it actually seems to make it much worse. And so our prayer is to shorten the wheel of karma, shorten the cycle of karma, so that the karmic feedback is instant and therefore we don't accrue a whole lifetime of bad karma.
That's true.
But that hasn't been implemented yet, and so what is happening is presences are accruing entire lifetimes of bad karma, and
That's
then
true.
the higher powers who have been attempting to get them for their whole life to do what they were born to do are then the ones whose input is most relevant when deciding how the karmic cycle will be applied to that presence.
That's true.
So it's really crazy to have an argument with the person who holds your future in their hands.
That's true.
And it's crazy to be disrespectful of them. So even from the perspective of a feral animal, it makes sense to just learn how to work with higher powers in a multidimensional effort to live your soul plan.
That's true.
Where they say, here's what you need to do, and for us to listen up, ask up what now in order to do what I was born to do, or some facet of it, and then to do it. Unless it's an issue of safety, we're supposed to just do it. And there an example that was being channeled in this morning is if the higher powers say, walk down that hallway.
That's right.
And we happen to know that underneath that rug there's a pit with spikes. It's a trap. And
That's true.
they can't see that from their perspective, and we would say, well, that's a trap, that's a pit, I don't want to do that. And they would say, oh, well, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. That doesn't even make any sense.
Doesn't make
Don't
sense.
step
That's
on that
dangerous.
carpet. That's dangerous. Don't do that. And so when there's a safety issue, then or something that seems like surely this is going to make it harder to accomplish the stated purpose, to bring it up. Another metaphor has been of a general in a military organization that's invaded another country. Let's just say it's a U.S. general who's invaded, let's just say Afghanistan, all right?
Okay.
And then there's a soldier, boots on the ground, who's been stationed in, let's just say, Afghanistan for a couple of years. And the general is saying, okay, well, let's go over here to this part of town. And that soldier says, sir, we cannot go to that part of town. That is unsafe. That's a good metaphor for how we should be interacting with these higher powers, as if we are a foot soldier and they are generals.
That's true.
For whom is the message? And why do you ask?